Good evening, and welcome to Friday Night Draft League, the official weekly roundup show of Superior VGC's second season of Draft League. Every week, we'll be hosting this show, breaking down our power rankings, weekly pick'ems, trade targets, and even commentating on a featured match. If you're excited to see more of this Pokemon Draft League content, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow Superior VGC on Twitter, and join the Discord. This week, we're breaking down Season 2's draft and more. So without any further delay, let's get right into it. What's up, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Draft League. Today, I am joined with Perk Hayes and Solo Salo, and we're going to be discussing everything that went on with Superior VGC's draft for Season 2. You guys want to say hello?
Of course we want to say hello. What's up, everyone? We are here, and we're very excited to welcome you to this first episode. And we are hoping to have really good things going on for this second season. It's looking like it's going to be pretty nice.
Definitely. And because we're both professional and very non-professional, we have Perk here. A very nice picture of Perk here in the center of our display. He has some technical difficulties upgrading his rig. Isn't that right, Perk?
Yeah, that's right. Hello, my name is Perk. I'm your community manager, amongst other various things. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. So today we're going to break down a few things. We already mentioned we're going to be talking about the draft. And also we kind of broke down a little bit of, what Friday Night Draft League is. I did that earlier without you guys. I'm sorry. And basically, Superior VGC, right? We host VGC tournaments, or we've been hosting them throughout the year. We've also been doing Draft League, and we've been doing Draft League prior to being Superior VGC. We've actually been doing it in the past as Amateur Battle League, ABL. We did 4 seasons of that. So this league, it's actually a paid league. So each one of our coaches, each one of the players here, they've paid a league fee. There will be an actual physical trophy. We'll be showing that off next week for Friday Night Draft League. But what do you guys think of this being a paid league?
So I think the best thing about it being a paid league is there's a few things, right? So it's we want to incentivize people to show up, to play their matches, things like that, because if you've ever played in a draft league, you know that it can be somewhat difficult to have people stay consistent, especially if they're not doing so hot. And with a monetary incentive at hand, it tends to keep people more tuned into the season the longer it goes. On top of that, it makes the playoffs more exciting, the stakes are higher, and it also gives us the ability to put that money towards the league. We put it straight back into the players, which is really cool.
Yeah, and there's absolutely no monetary gain for the league itself. It's, like you said, 100% turned right back. So for this season, there will be a trophy shipped out to the winner. And we have players from across multiple countries, not just in the United States. We're also giving out cash prizes to both first and second place. So it's going to be a very interesting league. It's going to be a very interesting season. A lot of newcomers for this season. We have a total of 10 coaches. And today we're going to kind of go through the draft and kind of recap it, but we're not going to do the whole thing where we go through each and every single round and this video ends up being 2 hours long, 3 hours long, and you start skipping through to see when we talked about your team because you only care about your team and what we thought about your team. We're not doing none of that. So we're only going to talk about the first 3 rounds of the draft. If coaches make draft recap videos, that's great. You can go visit their channel, watch their content, see what their thought process was. We're only going to cover the first 3 rounds, and we're only going to pick our favorite picks of the first 3 rounds, right? So I have my favorite 3 picks from the first 3 rounds. I know Salo has a few picks. I know Perk thinks a few things about some of the picks. So we'll discuss that. Then we'll move over and we'll discuss what the rankings of the team are based on their BST, or their average base stat total, if you will. And then we're going to go ahead and power rank these teams. I'll power rank the teams what I think are the top 10 teams based on their team comp, their synergy, the coach's experience running or playing in Draft League. And we'll kind of go from there and cut down the video for today, the stream for today, because next week it's week 1 and we'll have our first commentated match next week. You guys excited for that?
I'm going to be the one featured, so yeah, I kind of have to be excited.
Definitely.
I can't wait to watch you lose, buddy.
Oof. That hurts my feelings, man.
All right, so before we jump right into the overall picks, right, I do want to go ahead and cut over into our Excel spreadsheet, if you will. All right, so coming down to the Excel spreadsheet, every player will have access to this. Basically, right now, what you're seeing on your screen is last season's kill leaders, right? So last season we had Volcarona, Garchomp, Ceruledge, Houndstone, Toxicroak, Excalibur, Armarouge, Goldengo, Dragonite, and Corviknight as kill leaders. Most of these Pokemon are probably not going to be kill leaders this season, mainly because of the fact that we've included all of the home mons. So all of the legendary mons that just came through, all of the pseudo legendaries, you know, all those Legends Arceus mons, those are all going to be draftable this season. So I doubt we see any of these as kill leaders. But we also down at the bottom have our standings, which are null and void right now because we haven't started yet. But we do have the teams, and you'll start seeing the teams as we go through the team pages, which we will do here in a second. But you'll see them listed up there. You got a little bit of a preview of the teams. But I think we're pretty comfortable to start now and start talking about what I would say would be the best or our favorite 3 picks of each round. So I don't know who wants to start. You guys want me to start? We'll start with round 1. What anybody's favorite pick was from round 1.
I can start with that one.
Okay, we'll go with Sal.
All right, so my favorite pick from round 1, which that was actually that's sniped from something that I wanted to do, came from Mr. Bashe himself, from the coach of the Riolu's Rangers. And he played it very smart, in my opinion, because he had the 7th pick overall. And that meant that by the time that he got to make his first pick, most of the really broken S tiers were already gone. So Miraidon was gone, Kyogre was gone, Groudon was gone. So he instead shifted his focus towards the A tier. And he was like, okay, I want to get a really good A tier, and I want to build from that. And he knew that a lot of people are going to be looking at this one because it's one of the new ones. It's one of the ones that I think everyone, including myself, wanted to maybe give a try. And that's the Walking Wake. So that was my favorite trick from round 1 because we knew that the busted things were going to be like drafted immediately. And he was like, okay, so if you're going to take those right away, I'm going to take this. And that thing is really good. I'm excited to see what Bashe can do with it.
I want to agree too. That was a very valuable pick. That thing does really well in both rain and sun, and a lot of these coaches were going that first round going, I need my sun setter, I need my rain setter. So like Groudon, Kyogre, Koraidon, they were all taken right away. And you know, securing that Walking Wake that kind of works in both of those field, not terrains, but those field advantages that with those weathers. It's a very, very good position for him, especially being so late in the draft, right? I think, wasn't Vache like towards the latter end of it? Was it pick 9?
7, but
yeah, he's 4th the last.
Yeah. So being that late down there, like accommodating himself to have that pick, that's very valuable in my opinion. All right, and then I guess I'll go.
All right.
Oh, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
So I think, like, obviously round 1 with so many mons, especially us integrating home mons into this season, like, it's kind of hard to go wrong, right? Mm-hmm. But I have to say, I am surprised that Kyogre made it all the way to round 6. It's just, it's one of those mons that's been so dominant in the past. And I think especially with the meta being how it is right now, like, Kyogre's just going to be so powerful. So I would say, you know, my pick is going to be Kyogre just for the fact that, like, I think it was such a good pickup for, you know, for someone who was more than halfway through the first round, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That was also my pick. I had my number 1 most valuable pick. I had that Kyogre at pick 6. I would have, if I was at pick 3, I would have picked Kyogre or Groudon. I think it was pretty safe to say I would have probably picked Miraidon, one of those two first, purely because I wanted to try them out, and I've used Kyogre in the past. But that 3rd pick, the fact that Kyogre made it to 6, that thing sets rain automatically. That thing has always been a VGC threat. The way this team comp ended up, they have instant Tailwind access basically with that Tornadus there. They have redirection with Pachirisu. you know, that Kyogre is just gonna tear teams apart.
It really will.
Right.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead for round 2. My favorite pick of round 2 was round 2, pick 7. So this would make it the 17th pick overall. 17th pick overall. And this Pokemon is none other than Flutter Mane. And it's insane that the Seattle Sandstorms at pick 17 got that Flutter Mane just because of how threatful it is right now in doubles. And remember, this draft league is a doubles format, right? So Flutter Mane, being as annoying as it is in VGC, this is a doubles draft league following VGC format. So you're bringing 4 Pokemon. Again, Flutter Mane is just going to demolish competition. The team comp here with that Koraidon enabling it's a photosynthesis. It's going to be massively annoying to work with.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
So, if you've been following the monthly rumbles that we've been handling, you know how I was doing Mono Dragon for a couple of them. I hate Flutter Mane. I hate Flutter Mane so much, and I would probably
It's so
still hate
good.
it even if I didn't do Mono Dragon, because that thing is a menace. So watching it go all the way up to 17th pick overall was pretty surprising.
I think that, like, I wouldn't bat an eye if somebody had just picked it round 1, to be honest with you. Like, there are so many big dragon threats, especially now with home, that, like,
I'm surprised
having a
nobody
good
picked it
fairy type is essential.
right after the Walking Wake.
Yeah, you know, it's just to see it last that long, even after like people were getting their second picks.
Yep.
I mean, we got some good picks here, obviously, before that. I think some of them are a bit questionable. I see the, you know, I see the master plan, you know, looking at the whole team. But at that point, I feel like in round 2 is where you start to see some of them where it's like, I'm not entirely sure where this is going. Like, obviously they have a plan, but, you know, you don't really start to see those teams really develop until after, in my opinion, like their 4th pick.
And I guess, Salo, do you have a round 2 favorite?
Yes. Okay. So for round 2, most of the coaches had already picked their S tiers, meaning that they're really broken mons, like we said. And for this one, I think my favorite was actually the Tornadoes. So 15th pick overall, 5th pick of that second round. But I think that the only way to make Kyogre even scarier is to give it a Pokemon with Prankster Tailwind. So I remember before Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield, the Kyogre and Tornadoes were kind of running the game for a little bit there. So I immediately got flashbacks to, oh no, it's going to happen in the league. And yeah, I am a big fan of Prankster. It's probably one of my favorite abilities. So seeing him, I saw that just go straight for that combo was not surprising, but at the same time it was like, oh no.
Yeah, it's deadly, and they also have Regieleki, so they don't necessarily need the Tailwind every time. They could hit you with Electro Wave.
Right. Yeah, or, you know, just Regieleki given out.
This is very true. So again, this team is very, very scary. I'll start round 3. And then this will be the last round that we kind of break down the draft picks. My favorite one from round 3 is actually my own. This was round 3, pick 10. So this is like the very last pick, and it's Grimmsnarl, another Prankstermon. And again, I at this point in the draft, like, I was surprised Grimmsnarl was still there, and I was like, this is one of those very valuable Prankstermons. And just having it on the team, being able to set up screens whenever you wanted, being able to parting shot, I valued that rotation a lot. I valued the fact that, you know, you can change the terrain. There was a Miraidon there. So if I wanted to just Misty terrain, which I've done in VGC regionals in the past, to massive success, you know, I just think that Grimmsnarl with that fake out, the screens, the parting shot, the terrain, it's just way too valuable to pass up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple picks especially in here that I think are really, really cool. One of the ones that I like is the Seattle Sandstorms picked up Arcanine, and they are the team that also got what was it? Let me see. Or wait, hold on, sorry.
They ended up with Koraidon, Flutter Mane, Sandy Shocks, Lilligant.
Koraidon.
Yep.
Right. So they have some real threats on their team, and I think, like, you know, Arcanine is one of those mons without having what is his name? The Intimidate mon that everybody hates. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Incineroar.
Yeah.
Without having Incineroar in the meta, there's really just there's not like a ton of amazing fire types, for one. And Arcanine is so versatile. Like, you can use it defensively, you can use it offensively. You have your Intimidate,
has the extreme speed.
Flare Blitz, extreme speed. Like, it's got so many options that, I think it's a great pick. One of my favorites.
Do you have anything on the Arcanine, Salo?
Well, I was considering picking up the Arcanine because my first pick was actually Groudon. So right out the gate, I was like, okay, I need like a good Sun abuser. But then as soon as someone got it, I was like, well, there goes that, right? I will say for this round that the one that surprised me the most, or that I thought was actually really interesting, was, again, same team, the Ursaluna, man, because I think that one of the biggest threats in this whole draft league is going to be Miraidon. So you really need to have like a solid ground type, especially because grounding is such a good type anyway. And I think this was one of the ones that I was also like looking at. But this thing is kind of mean. Ursaluna is, I think it has a lot of potential. I'm excited to see what it's going to be doing during the season. But I think that at least in terms of those first three picks, this team, the team led by Coach Salad, he just did a really good job at forming a really strong core and a solid Pokemon that he's probably going to be able to bring every single week.
Yeah, I agree.
I think one of the things I'm most excited about for season is just the fact that, like, personally, I don't really know how well the Mons perform from what is it called? Legends of Arceus, right? I know that their stats and stuff have been data mined and all that, like back when those games came out, like their actual stats for the mainline games. But I didn't delve into that a whole lot. And obviously this is the first time they're in a traditional game, so I'm really excited to see, because we also had Overquill drafted in that same round, which I think is really cool.
Yep, we did.
So I'm excited to see these Pokemon, get out there and see what they can do, because like I have no idea, so I'm just going into it, just excited to see, what they're capable of.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, that covers our top three picks for each round, right? But let's talk about the teams overall, and let's go ahead and kind of break down what this Excel spreadsheet looks like and how to read it, right? So, and I know we're diving into that a little bit later, but whenever you're going into the Superior VGC or Superior Draft League spreadsheet, you're going to see the team banner up at the top. This nifty little banner here for the Cuernavaca Cyndaquils, and the coach being here with us on stream is pretty nice. You get some information on the coach's Discord channel. You get their country, their time zone, and you get when they started in the league. In this case, Salo started with us in Season 1. Now, you'll also get a player rating. Now, we're still developing and working on the scale on how to get the player rating and how to move you up and down in that. We'll have that set down by probably week 1, so like next week. But as of right now, because Salo is the champion from Season 1, he's obviously going to have that Diamond rank, which will be the highest rank you could attain. So the way it's going to work, it's going to be that Diamond, you're going to have that Gold, you're going to have Silver, Bronze, and then the Unranked. You're just not ranked at all. Moving even further, you'll be able to see their all-time win-loss. This is going to be their total win-loss. So you can see that Salo has an 11-6 record. You're also going to be seeing their total KD. So you'll see that Salo has a 42-34 KD. But to the right of that, you're going to have your expected stats. Now, how do these expected stats work? Well, each one of the Pokemon on Salo's team is going to have their stats, their K, their D, all over the season, right? So let's say Groudon has 15 kills. Let's say Great Tusk has 13 deaths. Those are going to be carried throughout the whole season. And the way we measure the expected is we're just going to get an average off of all these Pokemon, right? So his whole team is going to have an average, and you're going to be able to see more or less how he might perform, right? So you'll be able to say maybe he averages like 2 kills per game, but he averages 5 deaths each game, right? So you kind of get to see whether or not you have potential to secure KOs, or if he's a more risky player. And obviously we'll have more ways to analyze that data as we get the stat submissions and as we collect more information on the coach themselves. That serves us as we're making this show for you guys. We get to analyze that data and kind of discuss it here and just say, hey, you know, is it really the player? Is it the Pokemon? Like what's going on? Is it the team comp? And that's where we come in and break it down for you. Then at the end here, you also have an ABST, which is your average base stat total. Basically, that number is just taking the base stat total of each mon on this team, averaging it out. And then towards the end of that, you'll have your in-season stats, which will be your wins, your losses, and then your win overall percentage. And that's just how likely the team is of winning. So with that being said, I know that was a little bit much. Let's go ahead and run through the rankings of the teams. This is the final drafted teams based on, and let me just confirm that real quick, based on their average base stat total. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're going to go with the teams after the grace period because it's only fair. So what does that mean? Well, at the conclusion of our draft, we hosted a 24-hour grace period. In this grace period, coaches had the opportunity to make transactions for free. It didn't cost them against their in-season free agency transaction costs, right? I believe they have a certain number of transactions they can conduct throughout the regular season. However, in this 24-hour grace period, they could do as many as they wanted. Teams like mine, for example, had a massive shift. My team went from a team like this to a team like this. Completely different. So again, we went from this to this.
You went in on the grace period.
Yeah, it's completely different. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and rank the teams based on average base stat total.
Yeah.
So coming in at
Bottom to
10th
the top.
place, the lowest average base stat total is going to be the Spikemuth Pranksters. What do you guys think about this team? I'm going to read off the names in case you guys can see them. They've got the Magearna, they have Annihilate, Sableye, Mabostiff, Jumpluff, Thwackey, Torkoal, Donphan, Delphox, and Drifloon. Their average base stat total is 475.
Well, I think that this team, the problem is not so much that it doesn't have good Pokemon, because it definitely has good Pokemon. You can see some of them working nicely together. The Torkoal with the Jumpluff, the Delphox. You have a ground type in there in the Donphan. Again, I love Prankster, and you have the Sableye. Annihilate, I'd hate Annihilate too. And I'm going to say that a lot, sorry. But Annihilate is like such a good Pokemon, and it's always going to put in some work. But then you run into these problems, like Magearna is really broken. Magearna is one of the like better S tiers. But you're pairing it next to the Torkoal, which is going to fire up any fire moves that go into it. So maybe there's like some slight synergy issues there that I could see. I could see the coach Ching fixing those, but I think that this team can do some things, but we see. I think the main thing here is that I think we see better synergy in some of the teams that are listed above it.
Yeah, and I tend to agree, and I can see a few things going on here. Like I can see some plays. So for example, obviously, you know, the more that Annihilate gets hit, the stronger it hits back with that Rage Fist. So I can see the Sableye coming in with the screens. I can see maybe Mabostiff trying to provide some support. I can see maybe Thwackey coming in with the grassy terrain to try to lower the damage on ground type moves, and maybe making a combination of Sableye, Thwackey, and Annihilate Magearna to kind of like be able to take some hits and dish out some hits. But like you said, the issue is those fire types are being boosted by Torkoal. I don't see a lot of answers to the fire type, because the only thing here that could potentially put a lot of damage onto fire types would be Donphan, and then resorting to a Terra. But other than that, I mean, Jumpluff benefits from the rain, from the sun, but are you going to always land a Sleep Powder? We have a Sleep Claws, right? Are you going to focus on setting up that Tailwind? Well, Prankster Taunt just stops that in its tracks. I think there's a lot of potential here. I think maybe this is one of the teams that has to visit free agency and make some transactions.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it lacks major threats in a lot of ways, but I do think there's a lot of potential here for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, then moving on to the next team. This would be ranked 9. Remember, this is based on the average base stat total, not on what we're ranking the team overall as a team comp. because we went pretty high on praise on this next team, which is number 9, the Kent Cloths. This is the team that has Kyogre, Tornadus, Ursaluna, Basculegion, Pachirisu, Impidimp, Regieleki, Spiritomb, Tauros, and Bronzor. They're rocking a 485 base stat total, but I'll start with this one. I don't think that base stat total justifies the comp in this team, right? I think it may be ranked 9 in average base stat total, but this is a threatful team. I mean, you have Redirection in Pachirisu. You have a Mon that abuses the rain, 2 of them. You have 3 of them, really, if you count the one itself. So you have the Kyogre that benefits in the rain itself. Tornadus benefits in the rain itself. Basculegion has Swift Swim. If you want to count a 4th one, Regieleki loves the rain as well. So this team is threatful as it is. That Prankster Tailwind we were talking about earlier, Ursaluna already being posed as such a big VGC threat. Listen, they have answers with Trick Room with the Bronzor. They have another Prankstermon and Impidimp if they really wanted to do anything with that. Again, Intimidate with Tauros. This team has almost everything that you need.
Yeah, I think, how'd y'all let this happen? That's what I want to know. I think that's the real question. I didn't participate in the draft. If I had something like this, never would have happened. But I mean, this is a dangerous team. I mean, there's massive threats here, and there's a lot of he has so many options with this team, right? Like
you look at this team, and you have to make sure you have Wide Guard or Storm Drain or a solid ground type, because if you don't have any of those, this team just runs all over you.
As you see, Perk is dragging us a bit right now, and it's funny because I had 3rd pick overall, so I had the chance to pick the Kyogre. And I was like, nah, I don't want to use a Rain Tim this time because I've done it before. But yeah, pretty much the only weakness, and it's a quote-unquote weakness that I see on this team, is that since the format is Draft League, you look at all of these things and you at least know what to prepare for. Because something I was talking about with one of my friends, speaking about this team in particular, is that the big threats are so prominent that it's most likely going to be one or the other that you're facing, and maybe some of the lower tier mons in this team aren't as good, which is what actually hinders that base stat total that we were talking about. So there's no way that this team would be 9th if we were taking other factors into consideration, but the way that it stands, that's what you see. You see other Pokemon that will probably not get as much action, but at the same time, that's just because they won't need to. they will not need to be there at all.
Yeah. And then moving on to rank 8, we have the Riolu's Rangers with the base stat total of 498. This team has Zacian, Walking Wake, Decidueye Hisuian, Overquill, Electrode Hisuian, Riolu, Moltres, Bronzong, Gothorita, and Misdreavus. And my favorite 4 Mons in this team are the first 4, honestly. I was eyeballing all 4 of those Mons when I was picking up for draft. Walking Wake would have been my round 1 pick. I was the last one in the first round. I would have picked up the Walking Wake. I love the team. I think it's very I'm looking for a word. It's eclectic, if that makes sense. It's very creative in my mind, because you don't look at it at first glance and see, oh, this is a rain abusing team like we just saw with the Kent Cloths, right? That we saw that Kyogre Tornadus and we were like, we know exactly what this team does. This team, it's a little bit more, okay, what is it gonna do? And again, we were just talking about that draft format, right? You have Decidueye, you have Moltres, right? What are you going to do with these 2? But then you also have Walking Wake. So you can't just traditionally plan as a VGC counter. This one does make you approach it more of a draft league prep, which both those preps are completely different when you're coming into battles.
Okay, so I am a good friend of Mr. Coach Bashi over here, so I was excited to see him come into the league. But this team is just so him. Because he doesn't usually, like you said, he doesn't usually go for like the most obvious thing. So I think this team fits him perfectly. I think you and him ran into a similar thing while drafting, where you had ideas, but you were just like piecing them together as you went along. So this team, like you said, it doesn't seem like it has like a fixed strategy, but it will depend a lot on the creativity of the player, and Vache is that kind of player. So I am excited to see what he does. And I think a sleeper pick from this team is that Moltres. because yeah, sure, it has the quad weakness to rock, but now with Terra and with support from other mons in this team, I think that that big chicken is going to be doing some things.
Yeah, I mean, having Moltres have the option to Terra makes it such a threat now, whereas like before, it's like, oh, Stealth Rocks, Moltres is out of the game, right? Things like Charizard out of the game. Unless you use one of his 16 different generational gimmicks to change his typing. But, you know, like, Moltres is one of those mons that's definitely, like, people like to use it, right? But it's obviously always been that thorn in the side of, like, okay, but Stealth Rocks. And Stealth Rocks is really just not that prominent at all in the current format. So that could change now that we have Home. But I think overall, like, it's a great addition to his team for sure.
Moving on to number 7. Again, remember, this is average base stat total. So for number 7, we have the Seattle Sandstorm, which is rocking a base stat total of 508. This team has Koraidon, Fluttermane, Sandy Shock, Scizor, Braviary, Haunter, Arcanine, Lilligant, Knacklestack, and Alomomola. I think this is one of 3 teams. There's only 3 teams that I look at and I am like, I don't know how these teams got to what they got. And this to me is one of them, right? The first one is Kent Cloths. Seattle Sandstorm is another one for me. Koraidon enables that Fluttermane, that Sandy Shocks, that Lilligant, and that Arcanine like no one's business. And we haven't been able to play with Koraidon, Miraidon in draft yet. So I don't even know what they'll do in this draft format, let alone in a draft format that follows the VGC rules. We mentioned before, Fluttermane is so annoying. It's so threatful. The fact that you have Arcanine with that Intimidate, it benefits from the sun. Lilligant is there to put you to sleep. It has that Chlorophyll. It also has After You, which is really important because Lilligant's speed can get any mon that's slower to do things that you don't want it to do, right? So it's going to be something to watch for. There are some weaknesses on this team. I don't know if they win weather wars. I think if you disable Disruptor Weather at all, I think this team becomes just a single, let's start tackling things more as a single target threat, right? So as opposed to, like, let's say a team that's more well-rounded in that sense, that they could cover multiple areas, I think you take the sun away from this team and it's still a really good team. You just don't necessarily outspeed with Lilligant. You don't necessarily outspeed with Braviary to set up Tailwind. You have to set it up, but he's not necessarily fast or have a priority to set it up. So I think you start breaking the team down like that, but it's definitely a hard way to go through it. It's not by any means easy. It's a very scary team. It's a very strong team. But if we have to nitpick, I don't think it's well-rounded for all situations. It's more dominating with its own situation, if that makes sense.
Okay, so the main thing on this team is like the Koraidon and the Fluttermane, because that's just so smart in so many ways. So Fluttermane is busted, Koraidon is busted, and then you're thinking like, okay, well, Koraidon's weakness is that it's a fairy. Well, I have the best fairy in the entire game, so you can't hit me with that. And then he just, Coach Obo here, he was very... I think he got some really nice picks overall. Maybe the sun kind of hinders the Scizor, but Terra is a thing. Then Braviary is decent support, hits decently hard. Arcanine is one of the... It's like Arcanine is the current closest thing we have to Incineroar. Yeah. So that's always going to be nice, especially in the sun. The Lilligant works well. It's actually funny because my team is kind of a sun team too. So I knew that we were both going to get Lilligant. It was just a matter of seeing who was going to get which version of it. I have the Hisuian one. And then I think some of the like lower tier mons are very decent. So Alomomola can be very bulky. The Knacklestack can be so too with the Eviolite. And Hunter, I know Perk is a big Gengar fan, but I think Hunter there with the Eviolite, it can do some things as well. It hits decently hard for not being fully evolved.
Yep.
Listen, like you said though, I'm a Gengar fan, and as you know, I'm not exactly I'm not a Haunter hater as they call him, but Hunter's not a bad pick though, right? Like it can put things to sleep. It has Curse. It has Dream Eater. It is a little odd, but I think like given the fact that like depending on where you're at in the draft, right, when you get to the end, you got to make some tougher picks, right? This is his D tier pick, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad D tier pick, but you know, I mean, you get what you pay for. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, coming in at number 6, we have the Boston Red Claws. That's my team. Average base stat total of 512. This team consists of, after the changes, it consists of Mewtwo, Rillaboom, Gastrodon, Sneasler, Honchkrow, Persian, Basculin Legion Female, Klefki, Scovillain, and Muck. And I can break down the team and what my thought process was here. I missed a few picks during the regular draft, so I got skipped, and we have an ADP system that automatically picks once you got skipped once. The second time you go ahead and get skipped, by the way, I was on a nap and I'm a wheel pick. The next time you get skipped, we automatically give you the next best available Mon based on the ADP. So basically, that meant grace period. I had to just fix it. My thought process here is pretty straightforward. The main 2 pieces of this team are Gastrodon and Klefki. So Gastrodon, so that I can take care of anything that has to do with the Kent Cloths and Kyogre's water shenanigans. Dealing with any water type, just absorb all of it. Dealing with any electric types, I just have that ground type there, which is great. Gastrodon has just been great in VGC in general. And then Klefki for prankster shenanigans. It gets the ability to set up sun, set up rain, and then I had 2 Mons that benefit from both the sun and the rain, being Basculin Legion and Scovillain. It also sets up your screens. I have a Tailwind Mon, not a priority Tailwind Mon, but that's my Honchkrow. I have my Fake Out Mon in Persian. It also does Icy Wind stuff like for speed control and whatnot. And then, I have Scovillain, which can redirect. It could benefit from the sun if I wanted to. Rillaboom is there because it has that grassy terrain. I wanted to pair Rillaboom with Sneasler because Sneasler has that unburden ability. So I give it some grassy seeds, get that unburden, and just go crazy. Maybe do some Terra flying acrobatic shenanigans. That's all I was going for. I wasn't necessarily going for anything busted. Given 1, I didn't think I was going to play this season, and 2, I was 10th pick in the draft. I was already trying to do some crazy picks, and that's what I ended up with. That's the team.
Yeah, it is a wacky team. I'm not gonna lie, but I like it. It's got pizzazz. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm excited to see Sneasler do something. I'm excited to see Honchkrow because Honchkrow's little brother's been playing like crazy, and Honchkrow been looking out the window like, "Yo, when they gonna let me outside?" Because they didn't give him Prankster, right? And then you got Mewtwo, which is like, Mewtwo's always one of those mons that you just know is super strong, but like he doesn't get used all that much. But I think in draft especially, like he has a lot of potential, especially in this season where some of the faster legendaries that can outclass Mewtwo are not there. So I think that, and hey, I love a Muck pick. Muck is great.
Muck is great.
It's super cool. I just love it. It's great. So I'm excited to see that.
Okay, so I think we have a similar situation here to what I said with Bashe, where this team is like probably not your average team, but out of all the people that could make it work, you are one of those people. I am completely agreeing with Perk here on I want to see Sneasler do some stuff. I am a Murkrow fan, so I don't care about Honchkrow, but hey, whatever you can do with it, I think it's going to be cool. I do prefer also the Alolan Muck, but the regular Muck can do stuff. The Persian was one of the better D tiers in my opinion. I was looking at that as well. And you got Prankster too, so Klefki and Prankster mix well. The Rillaboom is for sure always going to be a VGC threat. Mewtwo as well. I don't think Mewtwo is as broken as some of the other things in S tier, but it's definitely very versatile. Because the amount of things that you can do with like Groudon or Kyogre, they're busted, but you know what they're going to do. And Mewtwo I think has a bigger bag of tricks. Maybe not as crazy, but it's definitely a nice bag of tricks that you can pull off with Mewtwo.
All right. And then moving on to number 5, we have the Lansing Leafeons. Let's go ahead and actually get their team here. The Lansing Leafeons, which are not that far from the Boston Red Claws, are at 513. They are rocking that Dialga, Landorus, Therian, Typhlosion, Braviary, Hisui, Dachsbun, Sawsbuck, Indeedee Female, Golduck, Ursaring, and Fletchinder. And I guess we could start picking it up a bit here for these next few teams. But I like the redirection. I like the priority Tailwind. And I also like the Intimidate. And I like the Dialga. Because we've seen Dialga in the past use that weakness policy. This team seems like it could do well in Trick Room. I love the redirection in Indeedee, like I said before. But I think the the good thing with this team is that it nullifies weather with that Golduck, and it benefits with that Tailwind, right? So you pair Typhlosion, Fletchinder, Dodgebun, and Landorus, and I can already see a threat there. Or switch any one of those with Indeedee. That's already annoying to deal with, but all of these Mons can actually put out a lot of damage and a lot of pressure. A quick instance right now, I lead Fletchinder, set up Tailwind, Typhlosion has Eruption. That's annoying to deal with if I don't have Wide Guard. Or let's say, for example, I have Indeedee female and I need a redirect and set up with whether it's Braviary or Dialga. That's already annoying to deal with. Or, pair Indeedee with Ursaring. That's annoying to deal with. No matter how you look at the team, I think each one of these Mons are annoying to deal with in more way than one.
I'm upset at Nick because he stole my mascot, so that's all I have to say about this. No, I'm kidding. Lando's nice, Dialga is nice, the Dashbun can work nicely with Typhlosion, speaking of. I'm excited to see what the Hisuian Bravery does, because it's got the Esper Wing, or whatever that move is called, is pretty interesting. And the rest of the picks, again, they're not like stellar Mons, but they can do a lot of work if you let them. I know Perk was excited for Evilite Ursaring, even though it was already possible before, but now he's going to see it in a more competitive setting. And redirection sucks, so it's always nice to have on your team.
All right, and then let's move on to pick.
Evilite Ursaring is the champ. Sorry.
This is true. This is very true. Let's move on to number 4, and at number 4 we have the Cleveland Celebi. This team is rocking a base stat total of 515. They have the Miraidon, Iron Bundle, Abomasnow, Iron Jugulus, Vaporeon, Flareon, Iron Treads, Gallade, Shroodle, and Dugtrio. All I have to say about this team is that Miraidon enables 2 of these Mons here, or 3 of these Mons here, and then you have a Weather duo that can just Blizzard you to heck, and then you can get trapped with Dugtrio. So that's all I gotta say about this team. I love it though. I love the team. It's just, y'all are so lucky to be up at the top of the draft and be able to have these Mons.
I got one word. Iron. That's it. I mean, seriously though, Iron Bundle, Miraidon, like, Iron Bundles are the most dominant Mons in the format beforehand. We didn't see a ton of Iron Julius, but we saw a little bit. It's quite good, obviously. Vaporeon, nice and bulky. The Flareon I'm not in love with as a pick, but I think one of the biggest value picks for this team was the Dugtrio. I mean, I think Dugtrio is just a fantastic Mon that really doesn't get used enough. I think that was huge value for them. Abomasnow, always scary, and like you said, Miraidon being able to activate 2 of these Mons is just huge.
Yep. So.
Well, I'm starting week 1 against this team, and I can tell you already from trying to prep for it that it sucks. So Cell did a really good job here at getting things that work really well together. So like Kirk was saying, Bundle, I hate Bundle because, again, dragons. But Bundle and Abomasnow, they control weather, they control speed. Then Jogulus, you get a very nice Tailwind option. Then Threats, I don't think Threats is as good as some of the other Paradoxes, but it can still hit pretty hard. And Doctor was a really good value pick because ground types are very, very useful in the format. Vaporeon can do some stuff as well. He has Prankster with Shroodle that can work as well. I don't like Flareon as a fire type, but hey, evolutions are always cool. And then to wrap it all up, Miraidon. So Miraidon, possibly the single most broken Pokemon in the format. So this team can probably like put in a lot of work.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. And then let's go ahead and move on with number 3 based off the average base stat total, which would be the Little Rock Lucarios. They're rocking an average base stat of 517. They have Urshifu Single Strike, Iron Valiant, Palmot, Zoroark, Hisuian, Lucario, Avalugg, Espathra, Samurott, Florges, and Clodsire. This team, Urshifu is very, very, very threatful. That thing can hit through Protects. That thing can just take you to another realm entirely. Palmot is there, and the Revival Blessing is always nice. And I'm very interested in Zoroark, actually. Like, my most interesting pick from this whole team would be that Zoroark, just because of its typing. I think if you would have paired it with like a Mon that would benefit from the fact that Zoroark has its typing, I think it could do massive, massive amounts of damage in terms of just deceiving your opponent.
I think that the most interesting thing about this team is that it's also not like really set into any archetypes, but it has a lot of things that can work nicely. So Lucario, for example, is a good counter to Flutter Mane most of the time. You have the Rebubble Blessing with the Palma that I think is the main reason why it's there. I'm excited to see what the Zorwork can do. And then you have a physical wall with Avalok. You have a defensive, especially defensive wall with the Floor Gaze. The Iron Valiant, I think, can put in a lot of work as well. And Clotsire is another one of the ones that I thought was a really solid D tier because it has Unaware. I think it also gets water absorbed. Yep. So if you're going to have Kyogre running around and other range stuff, then it's a really good thing to have. So I like this team, and I'm very surprised either way that as good as Urshifu is, I was very surprised to see that it was the very first pick overall from the entire draft.
Yeah, that is true. That is the very first pick. You have any thoughts on this team, Perk?
I'm excited to see Hisuian Zoroark. I think Lucario is a great pick. Florges is an interesting one. I don't know that it's necessarily needed, to be honest. Espatra, also a great pick. Urshifu S, I think, was a surprising first pick. I think a lot of people were sort of taken aback by that. I don't think it's a bad pick, but I do think it's a surprising pick given that when you have first pick, you literally the world is your oyster. You can have anything you want. I just don't know that Urshifu S screams oyster to me. You know what I mean? I think it's a good pick. I just don't know that it's first pick worthy. I'm excited to see Iron Valiant put in some work, and I would like to see some Palma. What is it? Revival Blessing?
Yeah.
Is that the?
Yep.
Yeah, I would like to see that utilized because I feel like a lot of people try and make it work, and I feel like more often than not, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. This is very, very true. I agree. And then moving on to the second ranked team based on average base stat total, that'll be the Flying Dutchmans. This team has a 518 ABST. They're rocking Palkia, Kingambit, Krookodile, Rotom, Mo, Vivillon, Frostlass, Enamorous, Therian, Tauros Blaze, Swalot, and Hypno. This team looks pretty solid, honestly. I think this is one of the more draft league centered teams that I've seen here. I just think it does a lot of different things, and it can potentially do all of them well. The only thing I see here lacking, and it's not really lacking it, not at all, it's quote-unquote a water type. Palkia is a water type. I understand that. It's in my mind, it's not normally what I would go for. Like, I'm going to pick this water type Palkia. I usually think of Palkia more of a dragon type primarily. That's me personally, right? So when I look at it, my first impression is, where's the water type? But obviously, it's right there. I understand that. But things that very much interest me about this team are that Enamorous Therian, the fact that I feel like this team in Trick Room is annoying because of Kingambit, and the fact that, Krookodile is there. If they manage to pull off a Moxie Krookodile, this team is just very, very scary. You pair that Krookodile with that Rotom, between Earthquake and Discharge, it's going to be super annoying to deal with right there. So again, this team is one of those teams that I think the draft league format will benefit it the most.
So first off,
I think one of the coolest.
Go ahead, Brick. Sorry.
I think one of the coolest things about this team is the fact that they literally, out of all these mons, they only have 2 type cross in the whole thing, right? So you only have Vivillon and Enamorous. They both have flying. You have Kingambit and Krookodile, they both have Dark. But out of all of these mons, that's the only crossover in typing they have, which I think, from a prepping perspective, is going to give them an advantage because you have just so many types that you have to worry about, and you don't know what they're going to bring. I mean, I think they drafted really well. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see Kingambit get some work in, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And Enamorous T, obviously, is a new mon to the format, so I'm excited for that as well.
All right, so the very first thing that caught my attention when you were talking about this team is that you mentioned the Krookodile with the Moxie, but then both Krookodile and the Tauros have an Anger Point, and you do have the Frostlass there with the Frost Breath, so I would be very surprised if he doesn't ever actually try to go for that.
I think he definitely goes for it with the Tauros, for sure.
People might be expecting it, but that's always a nice strategy. Yeah. And then what I liked about this team is that it's... it doesn't have anything like overly broken, but you said it best. It's very solid. So Palkia is maybe not as crazy as Kyogre, and especially in terms of, like you said, to the water type and just soaking everything. But Palkia is really good. And then I think Kingambit is one of the better Pokemon in the format. Steel is always very good typing, and I'm sure Kingambit is the best Steel type out there. And you got some interesting things as well going on in the lower tiers as usual. I wanted that Hypno, and it got sniped for me, so I think Hypno is decent value for being a D tier. Rotom is always nice to see. I'm curious to see what we might see from the Swalot, because I can't think off the top of my head what I see it doing. But yeah, this team is just like solid.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and move on to the number 1 ranked team, and that would be none other than yours truly over there. The Cuernavaca Cyndaquils rocking a 523. This team has Groudon, Great Tusk, Samurott Hisui, Noivern, Quillfish Hisui, Electrode, Goldengo, Lilligant Hisui, Pyroar, and Tropius. And I think it's only fitting that we let Salo talk about his own team.
Well, the first thing that you'll notice here is that I wanted to try out new things. So you got three Hisui mons right there, and I think all of them had something nice to bring out here. The Quillfish might depend a bit on Eviolite, but there's a lot of things that I want to try to do with it. And then the Samurott, for example, something you don't see too often in doubles is that it has the ability to set up hazards just by attacking. It has that interesting ability that boosts up that kind of move. The Lilligant is just like Sun, but with more weakness to Fairy, which is something that you might notice in my team. So at first I had drafted Amoonguss, because just like Amoonguss is really good. But then I noticed that a lot of my team was weak to Fairy. So I was like, Goldengo is there. Come here, boy. And that helped me a lot in having a Ghost type, having a Steel type, having another good special attacker. I think that other than the Groudon and the Great Tusk that are like my core, and that do fun stuff in the sun, plus ground types, ground types are nice. I have Tailwind with Noivern, I have Tailwind with Tropius. And the thing that I liked the most about my team was the D tiers. So Electrode is a D tier, but it's really fast and it can do some nice stuff. Pyroar is my fire type Pokemon, so instead of having something like my Volcarona from last season that was the kill leader, this time I have a Lion King that I hope can do some stuff. But again, it's a D tier, so I was very surprised to see it all the way down there. I would expect it to see it maybe in like C at the most, but hey, it worked for me.
Yeah. Perk, what are your thoughts on this team?
Overall, it's a great team. I think like the amount of bulk on the team is really cool. Golden Go getting back in there, I think, is awesome. I think it's going to be interesting to see, how well this team plays in the sun. Obviously, having ground threats is huge, like as we've seen over the past couple seasons in VGC. Like having a good ground type is huge, and you've got 2 great ones. So I think overall, like, great team, great utilization of the weather that you have on your team, and you just have a lot of options here, right? Like, you could do a lot of cool things with Electrode, given that he's so fast. Golden Go, there's strats around him just on his own. Same thing with Great Tusk. You've got the Sun, you've got Noivern. I mean, I think overall it's just a really solid team, and I'm sure that you will impress with it.
I'll try.
I don't think there's anything else I can say about this team that hasn't already been said. It's a very strong team comp. It's a very strong coach, right? And Salo was mentioning it earlier with the lower tiered teams based on average base stat, because we're about to rank it before we end up the stream here, the video. I think Salo's ability to not only have a team on paper that what it does, but also find what things you don't expect it to do is something to not forget, right? So when you're prepping against a team like this, with a coach like this, that's where our coach rankings come into play as well. You kind of have to think outside the box as well. I wouldn't put it past Salo to come in here and not bring Groudon and not bring Goldengo to a match, right? And then you're just left wondering, well, what is he going to do with Bounties too? And then just get sucker punched, right? Like, you just don't know what to do against the team. And the thing is, this team allows itself to do that as well. Samurott being a main focal point, right? We don't necessarily know how well or how not well Samurott can perform in doubles, right? But the fact that it has a move that sets up hazards, it's scary. That sharpen ability is scary, right? And then we already know what Goldengo does, but Goldengo has always been annoying to deal with. So the fact that there's only one makes it that much more difficult, right? So it's one of those teams that you kind of have to respect a lot, regardless of if you think your team can dominate it or not, because it will surprise you. All right, and to wrap up today's episode of the Friday Night Draft League, we're going to go ahead and give out the power rankings for the week. That way, leading into next week, we know which teams we consider to be the top teams to look forward to and whatnot, right? So for this power ranking, we're going to start from the bottom up as well. We're going to start ranking them from 10 all the way up, and we're going to kind of speed through this. We've already talked about the teams, so if we have a comment, we'll say it. If not, we'll just carry on. So coming in at number 10, we have the Little Rock Lucarios. All I have to say about this team is I think it's a solid team in terms of base stat. It just needs to demonstrate that it's a good team, right? We don't know what it does. It kind of seems like it's all over the place, but it might have some purpose. Anybody else have anything on this team?
No, I think you kind of hit it nail on the head right there.
Cool. And coming in at number 9, and you guys can stop me at any time and put in your comments. Coming in at number 9, we have the Spikemouth Pranksters. Again, this is one of those teams that we kind of also talked while we were talking about the base stat total. It's just we kind of need to see what exactly it's going to do. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if this team hits the free agency to find some new mons. Coming in at number 8, we have the Riolu's Rangers. I think this is just completely a coach thing, not the team thing. We already mentioned that the team, it's kind of crazy and sporadic. I think it's more so how the team or how the coach implements the team.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say, that the main thing with this team is that Vache is not ranked yet as a coach. He's played a single draft league, which he won. So that already, it's got me like with high expectations of what he might be able to do with this team, but we'll just have to wait and see for now.
Correct. So they can obviously move up in the rankings or the power rankings for next week, right? So we'll have to see and stay tuned on this team. Then moving in at number 7. Moving in at number 7, we have the Flying Dutchmans. This team, we were just talking about it. This is the most draft league team I think there is here in terms of just team comp. So I think this, again, just the fact that they're not ranked yet and the team doesn't necessarily look like it could dominate right off the bat, but if the more you look at it, the more you stare at it, the more you break it down, the more it seems like it will. I think this is just next week, this team will probably be up there in the rankings. Then moving on to number 6, we have the Boston Red Claws. Again, this team is just flexible and the coach is just silly. That's all it is. So that's why it's at number 6. If anybody has anything, you could pitch it in. If not, we'll move right on.
Go ahead, Mr. Crazy Coach.
All right, so for number 5, we have the Cleveland Celebes. Again, this team is, we talked about them in Ride On. We talked about the ice types. I think it's only at number 5 because of the ice types, and then the only other thing you have there is a Vaporeon that's like very, very scary. Other than that, we'll just have to see how this team performs. Coming in at number 4, we have the Lansing Leafeons. Again, this team, we mentioned that it is very scary. Everything individually can do a lot on its own, and the coach, of course, they have a gold rank. They were the runner-up for last season, so they're coming in at number 4.
We all know about Nick's potential, so he can do great things with pretty much anything, and he has a decent team to work with.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is a very, very decent team. So it'll be interesting to see where they're at next week. But coming in at number 3, we have the Seattle Sandstorm. This is Obo's team, and their banner just completely disappeared for a second. But this is Obo's team, Seattle Sandstorm. I think this team is just super dominant and going to be overpowering. Then coming in at number 2, we have the Cuernavaca Cyndaquils. Again, crazy team. We just talked about it. It was ranked number 1 in the average base stat total. The fact that it is also at the top 2 in terms of power rankings is scary, both because of the coach context and because of the team overall. Again, very dominant team. There's not much I can say other than be careful to anybody battling them.
Yeah, no pressure for me.
And then coming in at number 1.
Yeah, don't let them fool you.
Coming in at number 1, the final team. We have it at the top of the power rankings. We talked about it all stream, all video. It's the Kent Cloths, right? That Kyogre, Tornadus, Ursaluna, Regieleki, Pachirisu. It's just, unless if they completely flop in performance, this team is probably going to stay up here in one of the top ranking teams.
I am really happy that according to schedule, I don't have to fight that team.
All right. Well, let's go ahead.
That team
yeah,
is
go
really
ahead.
cool. I'm just excited to see how they do. Sorry, I don't know how much I'm like cutting out. So
No,
it's
no,
like,
no. That's probably just a small delay, but no, you're just excited to see how they do. Yeah, this is true, right? They have a very solid team, but we have no context of the coach. So they could either perform very well or underperform. So we'll just have to wait and see. But with that being said, that concludes our kind of breakdown of the draft. It was pretty extensive. We're gonna have to edit this down a bit, but let's go ahead and cut over here. And I just want to thank everybody for watching Friday Night Draft League. This is pretty much going to be what it's going to look like next week, a little bit more condensed in the commentary front, and then just there's going to be a battle at the end for next week. Every week we'll have a pick'ems where we pick who we think is going to win next week's match and so on and so forth. We won't have it for this week because obviously this is just a draft week. We do know the matchups. We're just not going to speculate any further than what we have already. Do you guys have anything else to say about the draft league? Any comments? We can start with Salo.
Okay, well, I'm very excited to see how things play out. I think we have some really good teams. We have a lot of talent in the coach area, and we have mostly newcomers. So the thing there, you're saying we're not going to pick who's winning for this first week, but it's more so because we're going to see what the coaches are looking like. We're going to see how they can manage their teams. I think for the first maybe 2 or 3 weeks, you get them to kind of really figure out what they're trying to do, what they can and cannot do with the things that they have. So that's always really exciting. And I'm going to do my best. I'm not promising anything, even though Perks just like, you have to just, you're so good, man. And I appreciate that. I just don't like the pressure.
So for me, all I want to say is welcome to season 2. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, we do put a lot of hard work into Superior VGC, and especially Curse. Like, absolutely, if you have any praise for this league at any point while you're watching this content or watching these battles, you know, tip your hat to Curse, send him a message on Twitter, whatever. Like, he works like crazy to put all this stuff together, and you know, I'm just happy that I'm able to come along for the ride and see how it goes.
I appreciate that. But yeah, no. That's it for today. That's it for this week. We'll catch you guys next week where we're going to be commentating. I think that's probably just going to be me and Perk commentating that match. We'll be commentating Salo's match.
Yeah.
So we'll get to see if all the pressure that Perk put on Salo paid off or not. We'll have a few segments. We'll have a few segments at the beginning of the show next week and then cut straight into the commentary for that match. So until next time, this was Friday Night Draft League, Superior VGC's weekly show. Catch you guys next time. Take it easy.